Chapter 1. The storm arrives. London, on a bleak October afternoon, the ominous clouds blanketed the sky like a forewarning of the storm about to crash into Lisa Carter's life. In the rooftop office of the Carter Grand Hotel, Lisa stood motionless before the large window, her gaze fixed on the bustling streets below. From birth, she had been accustomed to the luxurious life of a wealthy heiress, the only daughter of Lord Henry Carter, the founder and CEO of the prestigious Carter Hotels Group. But now everything she had ever known and loved was on the brink of collapse. The financial reports on her desk were filled with glaring red numbers. A risky investment in the international real estate market had ended in disaster, wiping out millions of pounds in an instant. Shareholders were panicking and pulling out. Banks were refusing to extend loans, and corporate giants were circling like vultures, waiting to buy out the Carter empire for a pittance. The office door suddenly swung open, snapping Lisa out of her thoughts. James Walker, her boyfriend, a talented but not particularly wealthy architect, entered with a worried expression. "Are you okay?" James gently took her hand, his deep brown eyes filled with concern. Lisa took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice steady. "I don't know what to do anymore. Things are terrible. If we can't secure funding within a month, we'll lose everything." James squeezed her hand reassuringly, though his eyes betrayed his helplessness. "I'll help you find a solution. We could sell some assets or look for investors." She let out a bitter chuckle. "Investors? No one wants to put money into a company on the verge of bankruptcy." Just then the phone rang. Lisa quickly picked it up. "Hello? Miss Carter, your father has been hospitalized." The voice of the family butler sounded tense. Lisa's heart stopped. "My father? What happened to him?" "Lord Henry has suffered a stroke. The doctor says it's due to extreme stress." The phone slipped from Lisa's grasp. She dashed out of the office, ignoring James calling after her. The only thing on her mind now was her father, the pillar of the family, the man who had built an empire, now fighting for his life. And despite all her efforts, she had been powerless to stop this catastrophe. But the worst was yet to come. A proposal was waiting for her, one that would change her life forever, from a man she never expected, Nathan Lancaster. Chapter 2. Nathan's Proposal. Lisa sat motionless outside the hospital room, her vacant eyes staring at the closed door. Inside, her father remained unconscious, surrounded by machines emitting steady beeping sounds. Her mother was in there with him, but Lisa had exhausted every ounce of strength she had left to endure another moment. Carter Hotels was collapsing. If her father woke up, he would have to face the reality of losing everything he had spent his life building. She had reached out to every contact, begged banks and investors for help, but no one was willing to rescue a sinking ship. Her phone suddenly vibrated in her hand. An unknown number. Lisa hesitated for a moment before answering. "It's me, Nathan Lancaster." Lisa's heart clenched. That name stirred too many memories. University days, late-night conversations, laughter. And then, the growing distance when she chose James over him. "I want to see you, right now." Lisa frowned. "Nathan, this really isn't the... If you truly want to save your family, you'll come." Before she could respond, the call ended. An hour later, Lisa stepped into a private meeting room at the Lancaster Grand Hotel, one of the crown jewels of Lancaster Holdings. The room was vast, opulent to the point of excess, yet for some reason it felt cold. Nathan stood with his back to her, the city lights reflecting off his perfectly tailored black suit. When he heard the door open, he turned around. The same eyes, deep, mysterious, and cold as ice. "Thank you for coming, Lisa." He pulled out a chair, gesturing for her to sit. She crossed her arms, her tone defensive. "You said you had a way to help me. What is it?" Nathan was silent for a moment, his gaze locked on to her. Then in a low, unwavering voice, he said, "I will fund Carter Hotels, enough to save your company, keep it in your family, and help your father survive this crisis." Lisa's heart pounded. You're serious?" Nathan tilted his head slightly. "I don't joke about matters like this." A flicker of hope ignited within Lisa, but before she could utter a word of gratitude, his voice cut through the air, cold and definitive. "But I have one condition." She stiffened. "What?" Nathan met her eyes without hesitation. You have to marry me. For 1 year. Silence engulfed the room. Lisa's eyes widened, convinced she had misheard. You're joking, right? Her voice trembled. No, he answered immediately. She let out a short, bitter laugh. Why? What do you get out of this? Nathan leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. I'm not a philanthropist, Lisa. I make investments, and I want to invest in you. She felt her breath hitch. She had thought she understood Nathan, but the man sitting in front of her now, cold, calculated, and entirely in control, felt like a stranger. This is a contract marriage? A transaction? Nathan smirked slightly. You can call it that. Lisa clenched her hands together, desperately searching for a reason to refuse. I have James. I love him. Nathan didn't even blink. And where is he? Lisa fell silent. James was overseas for an important project. She had texted him about the company's situation, but he hadn't been able to return immediately. Nathan tilted his head slightly, his voice calm but razor sharp. He can't help you, but I can. The question is, how much are you willing to sacrifice? Lisa felt like she was being backed into a corner with no escape. If she refused, Carter Hotels would fall, and her father might never recover from the shock. If she agreed, she would have to marry Nathan, an enigmatic, powerful, and perhaps even dangerous man. She searched his eyes for any hint of sincerity, but Nathan Lancaster never revealed his true emotions. 1 year, he repeated. After that, you're free to go. But for that year, you'll be my wife. Lisa gripped her hand so tightly that her nails dug into her skin. Just 1 year. Could she endure it? But did she really have another choice? She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and when she opened them again, she reached for the pen on the table. With a single signature, her life veered onto an unpredictable path. And she had no idea that the man sitting before her, the one she thought was treating this as nothing more than a transaction, had loved her for a very, very long time. Welcome to Soul Stories, Pukal. Life can be overwhelming, but here we share heartfelt tales to bring you peace, joy, and inspiration. Your support, every comment, like, and follow means the world to us. It motivates us to create more meaningful and uplifting stories just for you. Did our latest story touch your heart? Leave a "I am satisfied" in the comments if you agree. Subscribe now and be part of a community that spreads love, kindness, and positivity. Let's make every day a little brighter together. Chapter 3. A Loveless Marriage. All of England was abuzz with the wedding of Nathan Lancaster, the most powerful CEO in the financial world, and Lisa Carter, the heiress of a once great family now teetering on the edge of ruin. The ceremony took place at an ancient castle in Scotland, a venue reserved for only the most elite and influential members of society. The sky was overcast, cold winds sweeping across the vast highlands, but none of it could dull the grandeur of the event. Under the towering arches of the centuries-old stone church, Lisa stood in an exquisite wedding gown. The pure white lace cascaded into a long, flowing train, yet she had never felt colder. Nathan, clad in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, stood opposite her. His expression remained calm, betraying little emotion. Lisa Carter, do you take Nathan Lancaster as your husband, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer? Lisa tightened her freezing hands. This wasn't a marriage of love. This was a deal. I do. Her voice didn't waver, but her heart ached. Nathan's gaze never left her. When it was his turn, he answered without hesitation. I do. They exchanged rings. His hand was warm, gripping hers firmly as if to reassure her, though his expression remained as composed as ever. When the priest declared them husband and wife, Nathan leaned down, pressing a kiss to her forehead, a light, restrained touch, not passionate but carrying an unspoken promise of protection. As hundreds of guests watched, Lisa knew there was no turning back. She was now Nathan Lancaster's wife. After the wedding, they flew back to London and moved into Lancaster Manor, an extravagant estate in the outskirts of the city. But despite its breathtaking beauty, Lisa felt suffocated. Nathan never forced her into any marital obligations. He provided her with her own room and treated her with courtesy, yet always maintained a distance. And yet he cared for her in quiet, subtle ways, so much so that she couldn't completely hate him. Only a day after the wedding, she was ambushed by the press the moment she stepped out of Lancaster Holdings. "Lisa, did you marry Nathan for money?" "This marriage is just a contract, isn't it?" "Do you think Nathan loves you?" The ruthless questions closed in on her, the flashing cameras disorienting her. Then suddenly a warm hand took hers. "Nathan." He stood beside her, his piercing gaze sweeping over the reporters. "This interview is over." His voice was low but held an undeniable authority. Silence fell. No one dared to challenge Nathan Lancaster. He pulled her into the car and shut the door. As the vehicle moved, Lisa clenched her hands, struggling to steady herself. "You didn't have to do that," she murmured. Nathan met her eyes in the rearview mirror, his expression unreadable. "I won't let anyone harm my wife." Lisa froze, her heart skipping a beat. Days after the wedding, her father remained in the hospital. She barely slept, spending her nights by the window, staring into the darkness. One night, as she sat quietly with a cold cup of tea in her hands, the door creaked open. Nathan entered, holding a steaming cup. "Chamomile tea," he said, placing it before her. "It'll help you sleep." Lisa was taken aback. He didn't say much, didn't try to comfort her with empty words. He simply stayed, steady and silent. And that night, for the first time in days, she slept. During a crucial meeting with Carter Hotel's investors, Lisa faced open disdain. "I believe we should let Mr. Lancaster make the decisions instead of listening to an inexperienced heiress," an older shareholder scoffed. Lisa clenched her fists, but before she could respond, Nathan spoke. He stood slowly, his cold gaze sweeping across the room. "If anyone here believes Lisa is just an incompetent heiress, then they clearly haven't done their research." The room fell into stunned silence. Nathan continued, his voice sharp and authoritative. "She is not just my wife. She is someone you will learn to respect in the future." The atmosphere shifted. Lisa looked at him, an unfamiliar emotion swelling in her chest, something between gratitude, confusion, and something she couldn't quite name. He didn't use flowery words, but he had placed her in a position she never imagined she could stand in. And for the first time, she wondered, did Nathan Lancaster really see her as just a part of a contract? The more time she spent with him, the more she realized he wasn't as emotionless as she had believed. He always knew what she needed, even when she didn't say it. But he never crossed any boundaries. No declarations of love, no unnecessary closeness. He was like a fortress, unyielding, always shielding her, yet never letting her in. Lisa couldn't understand. If this was just a contract, why did he care so much? And she had no idea that Nathan had loved her for a very long time. But he would never let her know. Chapter 4. James Returns. Lisa never imagined that James Walker would return to London like this. She was standing in the conference room of Carter Hotels, fully focused on presenting the company's restructuring plan, when the doors suddenly swung open. James. He looked just as she remembered. Still the same architect with deep blue eyes and slightly tousled brown hair, a habit from working late nights. But this time, there was no tenderness in his gaze, only anger. "Lisa." His voice was hoarse. The entire room froze. Lisa stiffened, stunned to see him. She hadn't known he was back. No texts, no calls, no warning. Before she could say a word, he strode forward and grabbed her wrist. "You owe me an explanation." Lisa instinctively pulled away, her voice shaking. "James, this isn't the time." "Not the time." James let out a bitter laugh. "I was gone for only a few months, and when I return, I find out you've married Nathan Lancaster?" That name hung heavy in the air. A few employees gawked, while others quickly buried their faces in their documents, trying to avoid Lisa's gaze. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "Let's talk outside," she said quietly, trying to regain control of the situation. James clenched his fists, but after a moment, he nodded. The coffee on the table still steamed, but Lisa had no interest in touching it. James sat across from her, his eyes clouded with hurt and disappointment. "Tell me the truth." His voice was raw. "Why?" Lisa pressed her lips together. She didn't know where to start. "My family, it was in crisis," she said softly. Nathan helped, but he had conditions. James scoffed. Conditions? He leaned forward, eyes burning into hers. He forced you into marriage in exchange for money, didn't he? Lisa remained silent. James slammed his hand against the table. Lisa, you didn't have to go through this. If you had called me, if you had told me, I would have found another way to help you. She clenched her hands, her heart wavering. James had been her first love, the one who had been by her side through university, who had once meant everything to her. But when her world crumbled, he hadn't been there. It wasn't his fault, but the truth was, Nathan had been the one standing by her side when she needed someone the most. I wasn't forced, she said slowly, though her own feelings were still a tangled mess. James frowned, his voice lowering, wounded. Really? If you weren't forced, do you love him? Lisa couldn't answer right away. Did she love Nathan? The question had haunted her for days, yet she had never dared to confront it. James exhaled, the sorrow in his eyes cutting through her like a blade. Lisa, if you still love me, then leave this marriage. Her heart twisted painfully. Chapter 5, Slipping Away. Nathan knew James had returned the moment he saw the change in Lisa's eyes. She didn't tell him, but she didn't need to. He noticed it in the way she sighed absent-mindedly while staring out the window, the way her fingers idly touched the wedding ring she had never cared about before. In the silence that stretched between them during dinners that, while never overflowing with love, had always held casual conversation, simple questions, a semblance of warmth. Now she was different. He could feel her wavering, and Nathan, a man who had always been in control of everything in his life, was utterly powerless against it. He tried not to think about it, tried to pretend nothing had changed, tried to believe that Lisa would realize it was him who had always been there for her. But that night, as he passed by her office late in the evening, everything crumbled. Through the slightly open door, he heard her voice, soft but unmistakable. Nathan isn't at fault, but I don't know what to do anymore. Her voice caught. Nathan froze outside the door, motionless, his hands clenched into fists, his knuckles turning white. He had known. Lisa had never loved him. She had stayed because of the contract, out of obligation. She might have cared for him, might have appreciated him, but her heart had never belonged to him. And no matter what he did, no matter how much of himself he gave her, she still loved someone else. A searing pain spread through his chest, tightening around his lungs, making it hard to breathe. He turned away. He didn't step inside, didn't demand answers, because he already knew. Facing her wouldn't change anything. Lisa didn't see Nathan for the rest of the night. He didn't return to their room. He wasn't in his office. It wasn't until dawn that she finally heard movement from the back patio. When she stepped outside, she saw him standing there, alone in the cold night air. A nearly empty glass of whiskey dangled from his fingers, his dress shirt rumpled, the top 2 buttons undone. The wind ruffled his dark hair, but he didn't seem to notice. He simply stood there, silent, solitary. Lisa hesitated, then took a step forward. "What are you doing out here?" Her voice barely broke the stillness of the night. Nathan turned. His eyes, usually sharp and unreadable, were deep and exhausted. But tonight they held something else, something quieter, something more painful. "Do you love James?" The question was direct, no hesitation, no avoidance. Lisa froze. No anger, no accusations, just a simple question. So simple that it hurt more than any confrontation ever could. She opened her mouth but couldn't answer immediately. She didn't know. She loved James. But was it the same love it had been before? She wasn't sure anymore. She said nothing, and her silence was the loudest answer of all. Nathan watched her for a long moment. Then he smiled, a tired, lonely, bitter smile. "I see." He turned away, no longer looking at her. Lisa parted her lips, wanting to say something, to stop him, to explain, to tell him that she wasn't ready, that she was still searching for answers herself. But how could she tell him that when she didn't even know what was in her own heart? She saw it in his eyes, the eyes of a man who had loved for far too long, only to realize that no matter how much he gave, some things could never be his. That kind of pain wasn't something that could be put into words, and it suffocated her more than anything else. Nathan didn't become cold or distant in an obvious way. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't angry. He was still there, still watching over her in quiet ways, still noticing the little things, still making sure she had everything she needed. But he didn't touch her anymore. No more unexpected hand-holding when she got lost in a crowd. No more brief, steadying embraces when she was exhausted. No more soft glances when he thought she wasn't looking. In public, he remained the perfect husband, polite, composed, untouchable. But behind the doors of Lancaster Manor, the distance between them grew wider. It was as if he was slowly walking away from her life, and that terrified her. She couldn't blame him. She couldn't blame anyone, because she herself didn't know where her heart belonged. Their contract was ending in a few days. The house felt emptier than ever. Before, even though they weren't truly husband and wife, there had been shared dinners, spontaneous conversations, small moments of closeness they had unknowingly come to rely on. Now those things were gone. Lisa returned to her room each night in silence. Nathan no longer waited outside her door. Everything was coming to an end. She should have felt relieved. She should have been happy that she was finally going to be free. But why did the thought of leaving feel like she was about to lose the most important thing in her life? Chapter 6. Too late. Lisa sat in the back of the car as it pulled away from Lancaster Manor, her fingers clutching the fabric of her dress. She had chosen. She had told Nathan she was leaving. And he had let her go. If that's what you want, I won't stop you. His voice echoed in her head, calm, composed, like he had expected this all along, like he had already prepared for her to leave. But why did that hurt more than if he had begged her to stay? Lisa clenched her hands, her heart pounding with something she didn't understand. Numbers she did understand. She had realized it too late. She loved him. Not James. Not anymore. Nathan. The man who had never asked for her love, but had given her everything. The man who had stood by her when she was at her lowest, never asking for anything in return. The man who had been willing to let her go, even if it broke him. The thought sent a sharp pain through her chest. How had she not seen it before? How had she been so blind? The car moved steadily through the streets of London, but Lisa barely noticed the city passing by. She had made a mistake, a terrible mistake. And now, was it too late to fix it? Chapter 7. The Realization. Lisa sat alone in her apartment, staring at the untouched cup of tea on the table. It was the same chamomile tea Nathan had always made for her, but this time it tasted different, empty, like something was missing, like someone was missing. Nathan. She had left him. She had walked away thinking it was the right choice, thinking she needed to go back to James, back to the life she had once planned for herself. But now every moment without Nathan felt unbearably hollow. Every time she walked into an empty room, she expected to hear his steady voice. Every night she found herself reaching for someone who was no longer there. Nathan had disappeared from her world completely, and for the first time, she realized she couldn't bear it. When she saw James again, she expected to feel something. Warmth, nostalgia. But all she felt was distance. "Lisa," James said, his voice gentle as always, his fingers brushing against hers. "You're back. We can start over." Lisa looked at their intertwined hands. Once this touch had given her comfort. Once James had been her future. But now his warmth didn't reach her heart. Lisa slowly pulled her hand away. "I'm sorry, James." His brows furrowed, confusion flashing in his eyes. "Lisa?" She exhaled shakily, but for the first time she was sure of what she was about to say. "I love Nathan." The words felt like a revelation, yet they had always been there, waiting to be spoken. James fell silent. Lisa searched for guilt within herself, but there was none. James had been a beautiful part of her past, but Nathan was her heart, a love she had never acknowledged, a love she had let slip away. One morning as she sat in a cafe, a newspaper on the table beside her caught her eye. Nathan Lancaster spotted with heiress Amelia Westwood at a charity gala. Her breath hitched. She reached for the paper with trembling fingers, her pulse roaring in her ears. There he was, Nathan, standing next to an elegant, stunning woman, and he was smiling. A small, polite smile, but still. Lisa felt something inside her crack. A sharp, suffocating pain spread through her chest. Her grip tightened around her coffee cup. Why did it hurt so much? Why did it feel like she was losing him all over again? She had never imagined Nathan with someone else, never let herself think about it. But now that she was faced with the reality, jealousy clawed its way into her heart. A deep, aching jealousy she didn't know she was capable of feeling. She wasn't just upset, she was devastated. Lisa stood abruptly, nearly knocking over her coffee as she rushed out of the cafe. She walked aimlessly through the streets of London, her mind a chaotic mess. What had she done? Why had she let him go? Why had she believed, even for a second, that she could live without him? She had made the worst mistake of her life, and now she might have lost him forever. Because for the first time, she understood. She hadn't just loved Nathan. She had always loved him. She had just been too blind to see it. Chapter 8. Searching for the man she loves. After realizing her true feelings, Lisa no longer hesitated. She couldn't lose Nathan. She couldn't keep pretending that her heart didn't belong to him. Without a second thought, she turned her car around and headed straight to Lancaster Manor, the place she had once called home for a year. When she arrived, she found the grand gates shut tight, so different from before, when they had always been open to welcome her. She rang the doorbell, no response. She pressed it again. Still nothing. A gardener emerged from inside the property, looking at her with confusion. "Miss Carter? Where is Nathan? I need to see him." The gardener hesitated. "Mr. Lancaster left yesterday." "Left?" Lisa felt a jolt of shock. "Where did he go?" "Africa." Lisa stood frozen in place. The gardener continued, his voice cautious. "He flew to Kenya to oversee a charity project. Before he left, he requested to cut off all communication." She felt like her entire world was crumbling. Nathan was gone, and this time she had no idea how to find him. Lisa tried every possible way to contact Nathan, but it was futile. His phone had been disconnected. His emails went unanswered. She even went to Lancaster Holdings, but his secretary only gave her a cold response. "Mr. Lancaster has handed over full management to the vice president. We have no further information." Nathan had completely disappeared, as if he had never existed in her life. And in that moment, Lisa felt a painful realization settle in her heart. Maybe he had truly given up on her. A week later, a life-changing discovery. After a week of searching in vain, Lisa felt that something was wrong with her body. She was constantly exhausted, dizzy, and nauseous every morning. At first, she thought it was just stress, but when her period was over 2 weeks late, worry began to creep in. One evening, she bought a pregnancy test, her hands trembling as she held it. She closed her eyes, silently praying, then opened them to look down. 2 bold lines. Her heart stopped, her whole body shaking. She was pregnant. Lisa didn't know what to do. She stood frozen in front of the mirror, staring at her own reflection. Nathan was gone. She had no idea when he would return, if he ever would. She had walked away from him, but now a part of him still remained inside her. A single tear rolled down her cheek. "Nathan, where are you?" She gently placed a hand on her stomach, whispering to the life growing within her, "I will find your father." Lisa arrived in Africa with her heart filled with hope. After all the time apart, she finally had a chance to see Nathan again. But as she stepped into the charity project site, she stopped in her tracks. Right before her, Nathan stood laughing, engaged in a warm conversation with Amelia Westwood, a successful businesswoman and his longtime partner in humanitarian efforts. He looked at peace, relaxed, completely different from the man she had left behind years ago. Lisa's throat tightened. Had he truly moved on? Had the love she once threw away finally found no place for her anymore? She didn't have the courage to face him. Lisa turned away. She walked away silently without saying a single word. On the flight back home, she placed a protective hand over her belly, feeling the tiny life growing inside her. Even if she could no longer be with Nathan, She would love this child with all her heart, because no matter what, this baby was the last piece of love that Nathan had left in her life. Chapter 9, A Fateful Encounter, 5 years later. London on a late autumn day, beneath a pale gray sky, the air crisp and cool. Nathan Lancaster stepped out of his office building, his strides firm and unwavering, yet his mind more exhausted than ever. For the past 5 years, he had buried himself in work and humanitarian projects in Africa, trying to forget the past, trying to forget her. But his heart had never fully let go. He never expected fate to bring them back together like this. As he walked through the corridor of a bustling shopping center, Nathan suddenly came to a halt. In the distance, amid the crowd, she was there, Lisa Carter. She hadn't changed much, still breathtakingly beautiful. The same soft waves of her hair, the same deep, haunting eyes that had followed him in his dreams for years. But there was something different about her now. She looked more mature, more composed. Lisa saw him too. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. She felt the air leave her lungs. Neither of them moved, neither spoke. They just stood there, gazing at each other, as if the past had come rushing back too fast, leaving them both unsure how to react. Nathan was the first to break the silence, forcing a small, hesitant smile. Lisa. His voice was slightly hoarse, as though he had spoken a name he was never supposed to say again. She nodded slightly, offering a faint, careful smile in return. Nathan. They stood facing each other, neither knowing what to say next. They had once been husband and wife, had once shared a home, and now they were nothing more than two strangers weighed down by old memories. "How have you been?" he asked, his deep voice steady, yet carrying something unspoken. "I'm fine," she replied, though inside emotions stirred like waves in a storm. "And him?" "How have you been, Nathan?" she wanted to ask, but she didn't dare. Nathan held her gaze for a long moment, as if searching for something within her eyes. "Good." He finally nodded, his sharp gaze scanning her as though trying to read the truth she wasn't saying. There were 1,000 things they wanted to say, 1,000 unsaid words between them. They had once loved each other, once belonged to each other. But now all they could do was exchange forced pleasantries, like mere acquaintances, before turning and walking in opposite directions. Neither looked back, but their hearts ached. A few days later, at an exclusive financial and business gala, Nathan unexpectedly crossed paths with James Walker. The two men, once rivals in love, now stood face to face, emotions hidden behind unreadable expressions. James raised his glass, took a sip of wine, then looked at Nathan with an enigmatic gaze. "Didn't expect to see you here." Nathan gave a faint smirk. "And you? How's Lisa?" He didn't finish the sentence, but the meaning was clear. James hesitated briefly, then unexpectedly let out a small, bitter chuckle. "Do you think Lisa and I got back together?" Nathan's body tensed. James set his glass down, his movement slow and deliberate. "We never did." The atmosphere around them grew heavy, thick with unspoken truths. Nathan felt a faint dizziness creeping in. "What do you mean?" His voice dropped lower, edged with something dangerous. James met his gaze directly, his expression carrying something close to reproach. "When she left you, I tried to bring her back to me. I wanted to be there for her, to be the man she needed." James exhaled sharply, as if recalling something painful. "But she refused." Nathan's chest tightened. James continued, his voice quieter now. "She told me she loved you." Nathan's heart stopped. James let out another hollow chuckle, shaking his head. "There's something you don't know, Nathan. 5 years ago, Lisa went looking for you." Nathan felt his breath catch. "She looked for me?" James nodded, his eyes dark with meaning. "She flew all the way to Africa to find you, but when she arrived, she saw you smiling and talking with Amelia Westwood." Nathan froze in place. Amelia. She had been a major sponsor for his charity projects. They had met several times to discuss work, but there had never been anything between them. Nathan's mind reeled back to those days. At that time, he had only been trying to forget Lisa. He had never known that she had been there, that she had seen him, that she had misunderstood. James sighed, his voice laced with quiet sympathy. She thought you had moved on, so she left without saying a word. Nathan's grip on his glass tightened, his knuckles turning white. So that's why she never came back to me? James nodded. A numb sensation spread through Nathan's body. He had lost her because of a misunderstanding? But what James said next shook him to his core. James narrowed his eyes, hesitating slightly before finally speaking. And do you know what else? Nathan clenched his jaw, waiting. James paused for a moment, then spoke the words that shattered Nathan's world. She didn't leave alone. Nathan's breath faltered. What? James locked eyes with him, his next words cutting through Nathan like a knife. Lisa left, with your child growing inside her. The world around Nathan collapsed. His heart clenched painfully. A child? He had a child? Had he unknowingly missed 5 years of his own child's life? Nathan's hands trembled, the glass slipping slightly from his grasp. His entire body shook, as if he had just been hit by an overwhelming force. Lisa. She had loved him. She had searched for him, and she had carried his child for all these years. But because of one misunderstanding, she had chosen to raise their child alone. Nathan couldn't believe it, but now one thing was clearer than anything else. He would not let her walk away from him again. Chapter 10. Reunion. A gentle autumn afternoon in London. The golden sunlight stretched over the small garden behind Lisa's suburban home. The crisp air carried the sound of laughter, pure, innocent, and full of life. From a distance, Nathan Lancaster stood frozen, his eyes locked onto the scene before him. Her, Lisa Carter. She was sitting on the grass, her laughter radiant as she played with a small boy, around 4 years old. A boy with tousled, dark brown hair exactly like his own, eyes that were his. Nathan's heart clenched. He stood motionless, as if the world around him had just shifted. That little boy was his son. He had missed the early years of his child's life. The laughter, the hugs, the first steps, all lost because of a misunderstanding. His throat tightened, his feet felt rooted to the ground. He wanted to move forward, but his body refused to obey. Lisa. Had she endured everything alone? Then suddenly the little boy looked up and met his gaze. Lisa followed her son's eyes until hers landed on Nathan. In that instant, time stood still. Their eyes met. Lisa's breath hitched, her eyes widening as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Nathan couldn't hold back anymore. He rushed forward, pulling her into his arms, tight, desperate, as if letting go would mean losing her forever. Lisa, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. 5 years. 5 years of longing, of missing her, of aching for a love he thought was lost. She stood frozen in his embrace, her breath unsteady, her heart pounding wildly. Nathan! Her hands trembled, unsure whether to push him away or hold him closer. But in the end, she couldn't fight the overwhelming emotions any longer. Lisa clung to him, and tears spilled down her cheeks. I missed you so much. Nathan stilled. Had he heard her right? He tightened his embrace as if trying to etch this moment into his very soul. Lisa, his voice was hoarse. Did you come looking for me? She nodded, her voice shaky. I went all the way to Africa. I searched for you. But when I saw you with another woman, I thought, you had forgotten me. Nathan stiffened. His heart felt like it was being crushed. Lisa, he cupped her shoulders gently, his eyes filled with pain. I never forgot you. I thought I would always be the one who loved you alone. I tried to move on, but I never could. Lisa sobbed. Do you think I could ever forget you? She choked out. I loved you for so long without even realizing it. And when I lost you, I finally understood. No one could ever take your place. Nathan felt like the world had burst open. For years, he had wandered through life like a man lost in a dream, burying himself in work and charity just to erase her from his mind. But now, she was here, in his arms. And more than anything, she loved him too. At that moment, the little boy, who had been standing quietly, suddenly ran forward, tugging gently at Lisa's hand. "Mommy, who is he?" His small voice rang out, filled with innocent curiosity as his big, round eyes studied Nathan. Nathan felt his chest tighten. This little boy was his son. The child looked up at him, his gaze full of wonder and questions. But inside Nathan's heart, the pain was unbearable. He had missed so much. He hadn't been there for his son's first words, his first steps, his laughter. But he wouldn't waste another second. Nathan knelt down, his voice gentle but trembling. "Hello there." His deep voice was warm, though laced with emotion. "What's your name?" The boy tilted his head, glancing up at Lisa, as if waiting for her permission. Lisa hesitated, looking into Nathan's eyes, a silent storm of emotions passing between them. Then she smiled softly, stroking her son's hair. "Henry, sweetheart, this is Nathan." She paused. Then she said the words that shattered Nathan's world. "And this," her voice wavered slightly, "is your father." Nathan froze. The world around him seemed to explode with emotion. Henry. She had named their son after his father. Nathan's hands trembled, his throat tightening with overwhelming emotion. The boy blinked, his little face filled with curiosity as he tried to process what was happening. And then, without hesitation, Henry reached out and took Nathan's hand. Nathan almost stopped breathing. That tiny hand, warm and trusting, a part of him. Tears welled in Nathan's eyes, but this time, they were tears of joy. He pulled Henry into his arms, holding him close, as if making up for all the lost years in a single embrace. And in that moment, Nathan made a silent vow. He would never leave his son again, and he would never let go of the woman standing before him. Not now, not ever. Chapter 11. A complete family. Nathan looked at Lisa and Henry, his heart overflowing with emotions. The two most important people in his life were standing right in front of him. The years of separation, the misunderstandings, the pain, they had all been challenges, pushing them toward the truth of their destiny. Henry, the child he had never known, yet who resembled him in every way. And Lisa, the woman he had loved with everything he had, the one he had once lost. He would never lose her again. That evening, Nathan invited Lisa and Henry to Lancaster Manor. For the first time, Henry stepped into the grand estate, his eyes wide with amazement as he took in the massive hallways and elegant decor. "Mommy, this house is so big," the little boy exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Lisa smiled softly but couldn't hide the hesitation in her gaze. She had once left this place with a broken heart. Now that she had returned, she wasn't sure if it could ever truly feel like home again. Nathan seemed to understand her every thought. He reached for her hand, holding it firmly. "Lisa, stay." She looked up at him, her heart trembling at the sincerity in his eyes. "I don't want to lose you again," she whispered. Nathan let out a soft chuckle. "You won't," he murmured, "because this time I'm the one holding on to you." And then he got down on one knee. Lisa's eyes widened. Her heart pounded wildly in her chest. Henry tilted his head in confusion, staring at his father. "Daddy, did you hurt your leg?" the little boy asked innocently. Lisa laughed, but tears had already begun to form in her eyes. Nathan pulled out a small velvet box and opened it, revealing a stunning diamond ring that sparkled under the chandelier light. "Lisa Carter," he said, voice steady, filled with warmth. "Will you give me another chance? A chance to make things right, to love you the way I've always wanted to?" Lisa covered her mouth, choking back a sob. Nathan's voice softened, but his every word carried a promise. "Did you know? You were the only woman I ever loved, from the moment we met in university and every moment since. I've spent too many years waiting, too many years being a fool, but not anymore." "I don't want to wait any longer, Lisa. I want you to be my wife, forever." Lisa couldn't hold back her tears any longer. She looked at Henry, at the innocent wonder in his son's eyes, then back at the man before her. The man who had always loved her. The man who had sacrificed so much for her. Finally, she nodded, her voice breaking. "Yes, I will." Nathan let out a breathless, joyful laugh, a happiness Lisa hadn't seen in him for so long. He slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, desperately, as if he would never let go. Henry watched them embrace, his small face scrunching up in confusion. "So, does this mean Mommy and Daddy will be together forever?" the boy asked. Nathan turned and scooped his son into his arms, pressing a gentle kiss to his soft hair. "Yes, Henry. From now on, we'll always be a family." 1 year later, a wedding of love. 1 year later, Lisa and Nathan finally had their wedding, a real wedding. No contracts, no obligations, no pretense. This time, Lisa walked down the aisle with a genuine smile on her lips. Standing at the altar was Nathan, the man she had once married out of duty, the man she had once thought she could live without, but whom she now loved with all her heart. Henry, their son, proudly held the wedding rings, his small face filled with excitement as he ran up to his father. "Daddy, you better not lose this," he warned seriously, holding out the ring. Nathan chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "I won't, buddy, because your mother is the most precious treasure I have." Lisa gazed at the man before her, the one who had once been a friend, a business partner in a forced marriage, but was now the husband she loved more than anything. They exchanged vows, not as part of a deal, but as two souls who had found their way back to each other. A new family was built, not from perfection, but from mistakes, losses, and an unshakable love. A life of love and purpose. After the wedding, Nathan and Lisa continued their humanitarian projects, traveling to Africa and other parts of the world to bring help where it was needed most. And Henry grew up joining his parents on their journeys, learning the value of compassion and kindness. Each evening, as the sun set, their small family would sit together, sharing stories of the day, celebrating the little joys, and dreaming of the future. Their happiness wasn't built on luxury, it was built on the peace of knowing they would never lose each other again. True love isn't just about grand promises or fleeting passion. It is patience, sacrifice, and understanding. Sometimes we must lose something to realize its true worth. Lisa and Nathan had faced misunderstandings and pain, but those challenges only proved one thing: who truly mattered most. When you love someone, don't hesitate to show it. Don't let pride silence your heart. Happiness isn't about perfection. It's about choosing the right person and cherishing them every single day. Thank you for following this heartfelt story of Soul Stories channel. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone. Let's cherish the beautiful moments of life and love together.